Hello! Shoyan here. I'm a carpenter based in Japan. Today, I'm insulating the floor. I fit insulation on these 90cm squares, then install 24mm plywood underlay directly onto sleepers and sills. Today, I'm installing insulation on the plywood underlay. I'm also improving airtightness simultaneously. Though airtightness is not proportional to insulation, it's necessary to ensure airtightness before installing the plywood underlay. First, I seal around the anchor bolts and hold-downs, which are a type of anchor bolt. I just tape off the notch for the anchor bolts and cut the hold-downs. But this means the air under the sill will not flow upward. There are many types of floor insulation. I am using 50mm nail foam on this occasion. These should have been pre-cut 1mm narrower than the installation site, but they fit perfectly. The insulation is hung with special hardware. Actually, this is the first time I have used this method of insulation work. This hardware is precisely designed and a bit tricky to install, but it seems this is the one we will use. I install each piece carefully until I get used to it. Each 90cm square piece of insulation has a number on the back. However, once installed, we can't check the number anymore. It's like a palmonism. We install them like a puzzle. There are only two sizes of insulation. If it's the right size, you can install it where the numbers don't match. But it feels better to install it in the correct numbered position.
これが35、43、52、43、52。
Now that the insulation is installed, we start taping them. This tape gives an airtight seal, and it sticks very well. It sticks to the insulation so much that you can even get your fingernails caught in it. We attach this tape in both the long and short directions to overlap the insulation, sills, and sleepers. It's a taxing job. Old carpenters often say, "This is not carpentry work." I agree. Oh, I am old too. Now that the insulation is in place for the whole house, I install plywood underlay. Instead of numbers, a Japanese marking system called banzuke is used. It is a large jigsaw puzzle for one house. I found out after trying to install it that the plywood for the corners will not fit, so I notch only one side and install them. Of course, the areas around each hole down need to be notched out too. It is not easy to walk on the insulation. If you step in the middle of it, you immediately fall over. The insulation is like a pitfall trap that Japanese comedians often fall into. However, once the plywood is installed, it is fixed and it will no longer sink. I use 75mm long end nails 15cm apart to secure the plywood underlay. This nail is quite large, so I'm using a high-pressure nail gun. The nail won't shoot home if it hits a knot, as the sill is hard Japanese cypress. In this case, we hit the nail with a hammer. I make sure to spray urethane foam firmly around the pipes. I mentioned earlier that I had finished insulating the whole house, but there was still an 11 square meter room where the plywood was left. We carried the plywood outside the room and then installed the insulation and plywood in the same way. In the previous video, I installed the diagonal braces and the studs on the sill. Now that the plywood has been installed, I installed the remaining diagonal braces and studs on the plywood. This type of floor structure did not exist in the past. The first difference is the plastic jack post. After it came into common use construction, it became much easier. Not only can it be jacked and leveled, but termites won't damage it, as it is made of reinforced plastic. The second difference is that the insulation is used for the floor. Thick plywood underlay is installed without joists. Such rugged plywood did not exist in the old days. When I started my career as a carpenter, we installed 30mm plywood at a 45-degree angle in a large gymnasium. We installed 2 layers of the plywood and the exposed flooring on top. Even if such a large amount of plywood is not used, the floor will not warp or squeak if the plywood is 24mm. I really think this plywood underlay method is great. Now I complete the installation of the diagonal braces. Now I have finished insulating the floor and installing the plywood underlayment, diagonal braces, studs, and hardware. Installing plywood underlay is much easier than using joists, and I don't get caught when walking. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.